And recording is in progress for our very first Lunch with Friends. We are very excited to be able to have so many people joining us today. And it is a chance for us to hear from a couple of Joe and my very dear friends in Fleur and Maz. Before we do that, I'm really conscious that we are coming from all over Australia, Broome, Wagga, Dubbo, Lightning Ridge. We've got a bit of Theodore in the mix. I'm actually sitting in downtown Miles in southwest Queensland. And so I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners from all over Australia on the lands on which we're all meeting. We know that our First Nations people were our first connectors, our first builders of community, our first supporters of the sisterhood, which we have strong on here at the moment. And we acknowledge all of the leaders that are working on continuing to build this beautiful country that we all share. In terms of what we want to do today, it is really relaxed. We are recording it, but more so that we can use it as an example of what people will be able to be part of as they join the membership of the Connection Table. I think most people on here know me. My name's Julia Spicer and I call Gundawindi on Biggambull Country home now, and my friend Joe Palmer, who is also online.
Hello. Wiradjuri Country, The Rock, so southern New South Wales.
And so before we launch into the conversation that we're very lucky to be having with Fleur Anderson and Catherine Marriott today around how we've kind of ended up with the Connection Table, how it's come about, what we're wanting to do with it, but also to hear from both Fleur and Maz around how they've dealt with connecting and networked, how they've built the connections that they both have across Australia and actually globally. We wanted to be able to give you a chance to have a chat to people. This is a networking event and it's online, but at the same time, we want to be able to create an opportunity for you to meet a few new people. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
So what I'm going to do is actually bounce you into some Zoom rooms for a couple of minutes, literally to say hello, introduce yourself to the others in the room so that you have a chance to connect with other people from around Australia this morning on this call. And then we'll come back and kick into what it is that we want to be able to talk about today. So I'm going to send you all into some breakout rooms. And it's a chance, as we would at a networking event, you're standing in a small group with a couple of other people. Who are you? What got you here? What's the work that you're excited about? However you want to show up in your smaller group, but a chance for you to meet a few other people from around Australia who are looking to grow their networks.
So we're looking for a nice introvert-friendly way to kick off the conversation when you've got four rather loud people going to dominate the rest of the call.
I don't know what she's talking about. I'm going to send you into some small breakout rooms and we'll see you back here in a little while. So hopefully in that little chance, you had a chance to meet somebody new, maybe reconnect with somebody you haven't seen for a while. There's a few strong themes of people who are here today linked with some of the activity that Maz, Fleur, Joe and I have been part of. So it's lovely to see so many familiar faces, particularly for the first of this Lunch with Friends. And it's a really great opportunity for us to have some conversation. So this is about us all being able to talk together. I might ask if we can mute ourselves while we hear initially from Fleur and Maz, but really keen as we go through the conversation today that we've got a chance to have a group conversation. So please feel free to use the chat. Those of you driving, do so safely. But please feel free to use the chat. We'll come back to some of those questions. And at times we want to actually be able to open up the conversation for all of us. So this is meant to be one of those opportunities for us to network and hear. We'll be done by 12:30. We're conscious of everybody's time. So please, if you've got to do things over this next little while, please do so. Otherwise, we'll make sure that we're wrapped up by 12:30. There'll be others who join us and I'll let them in as we go. But for the moment, I wanted to kind of throw to Joe, first of all, to be able to, Joe, talk to us a little bit about what we're wanting to do, why we have included Lunch with Friends as one of the activities that we want to do as part of the Connection Table. and then I might let you introduce our two friends we're having lunch with today.
Sure can. Okay. Well, I'm assuming that if you have registered for this, that you at least had a quick stalk of the website, or at least the bare minimum of the LinkedIn page of the connection table. So I don't want to go too much into depth as far as what the big picture is with the connection table, but our aim is, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a fair bit in this conversation, but our aim is to be a facilitator to get more rural Australians seats at decision-making tables. So what we're really wanting these monthly lunch with friends to be is an opportunity for people to come in, get indigestion, eating fruit and nut while chewing and having stuff in your teeth in front of people, and really be able to demonstrate I was going to say caliber of people that we can bring into the mix, like Fleur and Maz, but a really, really amazing opportunity to be able to build your network. So not only with the people that we're bringing in as our guests, but also with the other people in the call. What I'm sure a lot of you will agree with is any sort of progression in career or life, or any of the bits and pieces that go with this scene, it's quite often not what you know, it's who you know. And so this is a really important part for us, that we're wanting to be able to have people experience the sort of crew that you'd be able to rub shoulders with as part of your connection table membership. So I will segue straight into introducing our very first guests for our first lunch with friends. And it seemed only fitting to have Fleur and Maz join us because they were literally there from day dot. And day dot started poolside in Singapore nearly 2 years ago, when these three came over and visited me while I was still living over there. And as you do with all smart women sitting with a hangover in a swimming pool when it's like 40,000 degrees and 97% humidity, you talk about solving all of rural Australia's problems. And we then also sort of, I think, found we were falling into that moaning about it category, and it was like, okay, then what does this look like when you actually do something about it? So it's definitely taken us a while to get here, but I am really excited to, well, first I'll introduce Fleur Anderson, who will give, you girls can both give us a bit more of a spiel, but Fleur is based in Theodore in central Queensland. She is a director in the Queensland Government's Department of Ag. She is a cotton farmer. She is a board director. She has two of the coolest kids that I know that are at boarding school in Toowoomba. She's married to also one of the funniest blokes you will come across, and is an all-round legend. And then we have Catherine Marriott, who, I don't even know where you are today. Where are you? I was going to say she's like, well, actually, you can. I'll leave to where your location is. Yeah, I'm not even. You can tell us where you are today.
Maz, I'm at Mum's house in Eden, which is why I just had to go outside because she was on the.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so she's on the south coast of New South Wales at the moment, and well, I should say Catherine Marriott OAM. Apologies for not using your full title.
Get your hand off it, Palmer.
But look, if you haven't already stalked Maz or come across her in your travels, readings, like turning up at events and things, they don't dole OAMs out to anyone, and we've got at least two of them in this call. We'll let you girls do a bit more of an intro, but I wanted to thank you on behalf of Jules and I for, one, being those catalysts there in the pool, and also for being just such big supports on getting us to where we are already. And I'm really excited to be able to introduce you to this crowd who might not have met you before, because your journeys are really exhibit A of what we want to be able to help support other people do. And you guys have actually been really like trailblazers, particularly in the women's space, and being able to get into these senior leadership positions that you have. So Fleur, do you want to kick us off and give us a bit of a, well, actually, Jules, we had more specific ones. Do you want to give her a more specific starting question? Sorry.
I do have a more specific, and then if you can both weave a bit more of an introduction in, or anything else that you might want to share with us. Joe's already talked about, often it's not what you know, it's who you know, and we often have joked about And I personally have often joked about if I had to rely on what I know, I would not have got very far. But thankfully, I know most of regional Australia, and that's been very helpful. Fleur, if we're starting with you, can you give us a bit of a potted history of what's been important to you for starters? So some of that value conversation, and then also link it to what that's meant for you in terms of roles, in terms of some of the professional development that you've done. Because as Joe said, certainly agriculture is not the only way in which you've kind of shown up around different tables.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I won't do too much more of an intro. I feel like Joe overcooked that. I even felt myself blushing during that introduction. But yeah, as I said, live on a family farm in central Queensland in Theodore. Theodore, for those that aren't familiar, is a small town on the Dawson River, about 400 or 500 people. So when I've always really loved rural communities and any kind of community, particularly, and have grown up in an agricultural sort of background. I guess throughout boring you just with all the timeline of it, but through, I guess, you have to get pretty innovative about your career when you find yourself at the age of 23 living in a town of 400 people. So, had to kind of go wherever the opportunity or where the interest was, and it did maybe involve a little bit more of traveling and juggling and all the rest of it than what I had anticipated, but it's been good fun. So I guess I've worked for myself and in the community and economic development kind of sector, and all based around rural communities. In the mining sector, the philanthropic sector, the gas sector, and agriculture have been sort of the main kind of areas that I've worked in, and now as a public servant for the last 4 years. And I guess the common thread, it looks a little bit like, there's been a bit of, lots of different opportunities that have come up, but at the core of them, they were all about improving lives for rural Queenslanders, realising opportunity in rural areas, and kind of bringing the profile of all the good stuff that's happening out in rural areas to the fore. So I felt like, for example, when I was working in the mining sector out of Sydney, I was working remotely from my farm based out of Sydney in a national role. I used to call myself the translator. So sort of trying to translate and help people understand what is happening, all the good stuff that is happening out here. I do recall going to Sydney one time, and they had a stand-up in the, this is in the middle of, Pitt Street or whatever, and they have a stand-up meeting in the morning, and I was there for the smoke-over room for their stand-up meeting where they're talking about all this stuff. And the CEO said, we have a real live country person with us today. So apart from feeling like a little bit of a sideshow freak in some of those environments, I really took that opportunity to I guess, help translate and bridge that, and make sure that the well-intentioned efforts of that company were translating to the voices and elevating the voices and the I guess the ambitions of people in rural areas. So that's kind of been, I guess, the common thread, Jules. I don't want to labour too much. I'll let you take it back.
No, I think that translator role is probably not uncommon to many people on here, and I think is certainly something about, how do we do that in a professional, in a positive? How do we challenge and not shout? I think that is a really important piece to play.
Oh dear, she looks like she's about to sneeze. Maz.
She does. Yeah. Hopefully.
So I'm going to throw to the group. Can you also actually being invited into some of these activities? Touching on the AFI comment you made.
Okay, so we missed pretty much everything you said just then. Sorry,
regional connectivity. So, Maz, I'm going to send you in a slightly different tangent. Can you, as part of your introduction, talk a little bit about how over your time you've added to the number of people that are invited to the table? Does that make sense around the AFI conversation?
Yeah, sure. So lovely to see you all that I know and meet some new little humans, which is always fun. I'll start with my values, Jules, like obviously integrity, honesty, all the boring ones. But my 3 that I like to share is generosity, curiosity, and authenticity. And so I tend to hold on to those fairly tightly as I travel the planet. And I guess you know, like I don't really want to go through my life's history. I love rural Australia. I love the people within rural Australia. I'm quite a future thinker, so I'm always looking ahead at where the next challenge or opportunity is for industry, for local communities and for families within that space. And I think something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is that in ag, there are people that are known, and these people get asked onto boards, these people get asked to present at conferences, and there's so many really smart, incredible, diverse people in ag and rural communities that just don't get a voice at the table because, you know, fundamentally, I think we're lazy. We just know that Jules Spicer or Joe Palmer or Fleur or anyone pretty much on this whole call is going to do a good job, and then we don't have to think. So I spoke earlier this week at the Australian Farm Institute conference, and one of the things that I said is, you know, I think we're holding ag back from its potentiality because we're constantly going to the same people. We're talking about the same challenges and getting the same results. So we need to, and I put the challenge out that everyone, when they run an event or form a committee or, you know, doing something, that they get 2 people at least around the table or in the room or on the stage that are not well known, because otherwise we're not able to give people an opportunity to shine. And oh my gosh, shock me, they may actually have a better idea than we do. So yeah, so that's something that I'm pretty passionate about, and I actively do all the time. If I can't speak at an event, I'll find someone that's not as well known that I know has got a ripper story and is comfortable. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but you know, I suppose that's just something that fits in with my generosity value.
I think as well, just on that, Maz, I think that it's not isolated to ag. I think all industries are pretty bad at just defaulting to the path of least resistance. And I think that that's something that we're really, really conscious that as we build the connection table out, it is rural Australia. It's not agriculture. It is not mining. It is not this. And what that concept of bringing people together, because you've said, okay, you put like a number on it. AFI, you people in this room, you need to be looking at getting 2 people that are unknown. That's really hard. Like, it's hard. And where do you find these people? And we were talking offline before we started is, again, it's not what you know, it is who you know. And how do you bring people into the fold, and how do you push them like through a leadership journey and, well, I shouldn't say push, nurture through a leadership journey and trajectory. But I think that that is why we do take that path of least resistance, because there isn't a centralized pace to find the other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where the connection table is crucial, really, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, we've all individually got mates and people that we're connected with, but it's about being conscious of putting those people forward. And I don't know, like, nothing gives me greater pleasure than watching people grow and shine. Like, it just makes me happy. I don't know. I think everyone probably on this call is the same. So yeah, there needs to be more of it.
Can I, with you, Frozen Joe, can I share just on that, I guess?
No, I just look like this.
Well, it's much more attractive than my frozen faces, which normally, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I guess I just wanted to chime in there about something that I guess I've been reflecting on since particularly in the last 4 years in the public service, where I have had to relinquish a lot of board roles, speaking spots, networking opportunities don't come around as often in the way that they used to, and how that's changed, I guess, some of the views on things. But I am often always asked, do you know somebody that we could put forward for X and Y? And I was talking to a friend that was, someone about a board career, like getting some mentoring on a board career. And she said, and I guess this is where this conversation in Singapore probably for me started too, is they said, look, honestly, the best thing that you can do is you need to have 50 to 75 cups of coffee a year with people, just cold call them. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's great. But that's 10% of the population of the town that I live in. Do I have to drive to the accessibility and the proximity to those opportunities and coffees and stuff? And I think that is where we find it challenging, because when you're not in proximity and you're not top of mind to be put forward as those names, we do just wheel out ones that we've seen more regularly. There's so many people out there that are just getting on and doing great work. And they're the ones. So I try really hard to keep a running list in my notes app on my phone when I've met somebody and I think, oh, they're a goer or they're a real doer. They've got a great skill in X or whatever. And I just pop their name on my list and in brackets what I've, where their sort of specialty lies, so that then when someone does say, do you know someone, I can go trawl through and find not just a top 3 that come to mind, because it is just about visibility, and that is the hard part for rural and regional Australia, is that visibility is a lot harder, and I find that visibility harder as well. So, and I think so. I guess my thing is that, that throwaway line that we said at the start of this, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I kind of cringe sometimes when I hear that, because I think, well, it is what you know as well. Like, don't think that people haven't gotten somewhere just because it's who they know. But what we're saying is what you know isn't always enough, isn't it? So
that's a good pickup.
It needs both. And I think that you need both, because what you know and the brilliant minds and smarts out there are why we want to connect and lift those people up and get them visible. So for me, I've set myself kind of a couple of challenges, is like to always, in groups, I'm just always consciously talking someone up and putting someone forward. And if that means I have to put a notes app on my thing when I have a brain freeze, then, whatever tool can help my brain is always welcome. I guess, just wanted to throw that in there about that visibility factor. And that's where I think the connection table, when we were having that conversation originally, I was saying that's my greatest challenge. And I felt like the connection table was a solution to that specific challenge of trying to overcome the networking proximity and opportunity. And I'm also I know we're all, I couldn't sit here with a straight face and say I'm not extroverted, but I'm not, some of the other girls on the call leave me for dead. I thought I was extroverted till I met Maz and Joe and Jules. But I'm not great. I'm not a great performer in a large, cold networking kind of scenario. That's not my, strong suit. So I find some of like this conversation is really lovely. The one-on-ones I might have afterwards, or they're just little reaching out messages. So it's trying to find those ways to find visibility when you're not able to physically get to all of the things where all those conversations and networks are made and you're not top of mind.
Can I throw something else to both of you? And if anybody's got questions, please let me know so that you can ask or something you want to raise with this group. But the other really interesting thing that we've been exploring is this piece of, and again, I think it's that visibility piece, but I mean, between the pair of you, there's ARLP, there's Nuffield, there's Rural Women's Award. Like, you two have done a lot of the things. Joe's done a few of the things. I've done none of those things. So how do we make sure that we want to value those opportunities? Absolutely. And at the same time, what happens if we only put focus on that? There are a whole lot of people that we're potentially missing through our communities and our regions, which is a little what we were talking about before. What I do want to do is just ask what you found out of some of those groups. So, some of the programs or the learning, the professional development that you've been part of. What are some of those opportunities and the network, that alumni piece that you've had? Can you talk to a little bit of that? Maz, do you want to go first?
Sure. Can you hear me? So, I guess, like, alumni is only as good as the energy that you put into it. You get afforded often incredible opportunities. And I think what I really love about the connection table and the concept is, ARLP alumni, Field alumni, or Women's Award, Rural Women's Award, Shirley's Church, there's thousands of them out there. But what I really love about the connection table is that it actually cross-pollinates, because you've got lots of different leadership courses and lots of investment going into it. By the very definition of how they're structured, they promulgate silos. And I think that it's important that we sort of get out of those silos. And to your point, Jules, there's extraordinary leaders that haven't done any of that. I personally needed a lot of help, and I'm not sure that I'm really anywhere near successful. But we need to be able to cross-pollinate and then also bring people in from outside. And how do I do that? It's about, it takes energy and effort. And I know Fleur made a joke about the fact that I'm extroverted and I've been a fair whack of introversion in me as well. Like nobody talks to me past 7 p.m. Conference dinners, run away and hide. I can turn it on and I'm going, make no mistake. But I think it's important that you put yourself out there and go to conferences, make connections like intentionally and follow up, like ring them, email them, say, hey, it was really great to meet you. These are some of the things I'm interested in. I ask people if they'd be happy to mentor me. I also, when I'm talking to people, if I feel like I might be able to give them a hand with something, I'll offer to, take a call with them if there's something that I can be of help with. So I think the whole networking and alumni piece, it takes action and it takes effort, but the happiness and efficiency dividend that you yield from investing in your networks is really quite awesome. And to be frank, it's fun. Yeah. Well, Australia's got lots of wicked and deadly humans.
Do you want me to add on to that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've done a couple, not heaps, but I did start off, I did the first Future Cotton Leaders program when I was quite young and new to the industry, over, like, I don't know, must be nearly 20 years ago now. And that kind of kick-started, I guess, that for me, thinking about the intention of where I wanted to make my contribution and those sorts of things, and really starting to get curious about leadership as well. And then I guess I got to a point where I felt like I needed a tune-up. I needed to update, needed to refresh, and I was starting to question where I was going and what my contribution was, and what path, what was I doing next? What was my next move? And that's what inspired me to sign up to that ARLP program. That was in 2018. I think I did that one. So I think that for me, my participation in those courses was probably quite selfish. I went there for self-development, to understand myself a bit better, to fine-tune my skills. And then the network part of it wasn't why I did it, but it was a thing that I wanted to cultivate from that. Was I brilliant at doing that? Probably not. But I did take away, I am getting better at that as I go along. I've gotten much better at calling people just to pick their brains. And I think a lot of people that are happy to take that call, because you're not asking anyone, but you're just like, I've been thinking about this and I just wanted to pick your brains what your thoughts were on this, and it might be because I'm pretty porous and maybe easily led, and I haven't formed strong, always say I've got strong opinions loosely held. So I need to workshop them around with a lot of different people to try and work out where I sit on things. So having those pick brain conversations, I think, is a really great way to build rapport with people and share and expand my thinking as well. So that's what I would like out of an alumni kind of situation. But I do find that all of the groups that I have been with, they're funded to deliver the program. That's resource heavy and staff heavy, and alumni is also really resource heavy for those groups, and they're not necessarily, they're focused on delivering the program and upskilling and getting people to a position. And I don't want to, I'm sorry if there's anyone a CEO of any of these programs or anything on board, but talking to them, they're like, we want to do the alumni better, but that's just not currently, in scope or whatever. And that, I guess, was another thing where I saw for resource-wise, instead of all of these groups trying to resource all these different alumni programs and trying to keep their, like Maz said, their silo tight, why not bloody bring them all together? And it'll probably help each of those programs when you're talking to someone and you want to go and then have a crack at that and explore them around.
It's a good idea for a business.
Exactly.
I've got a question, though, to sort of switch tack with you both a little bit around, you have both sort of been leaders early in your lives and careers, and you've been sort of picked up and sort of nurtured away, and you've actively sort of pursued this. I think what's been super interesting, even in these really early weeks with us opening up with the connection table, has been a lot more people that have coming into this scene later in their career with more of like school of life under their belt, but again with really clear and strong values, something or things that they're really, really passionate about. And that way of sort of navigating into leadership positions becomes a bit challenging when, the default is quite often like, okay, well, go and get on the daycare centres committee, go and be the treasurer in your CWA, go and do these little things to cut your teeth on. Like, I still think that there's huge value in doing those sorts of things. But do you have advice, thoughts, ponderings around what does it look like when you are like, okay, I actually feel like my kids are old enough. I've done with caring with the elderly parent. My career's underway. I'm a bit more financially stable. Hang on, I've got a whole lot of things that I want to say. And I want to actually start looking at what does that look like and getting into more vocal leadership positions. What would be your sort of advice around either the skills or the strategies or the things to sort of come in a bit later on in life into this scene?
So for me, it's really interesting because I've never really seen myself as a leader. And that sounds to most people completely silly. But what I've always been focused on is care about where is there a need. And I've just gotten busy. I'm sorry, I'm getting away.
So you look like you're in a tornado.
I seriously am in a tornado. There's Mama.
Hi, Mum.
Oh God, it's so much warmer in here. So my advice would be to find out what is it that you're passionate about, where is there a need, and then what skills have you got? And then I would do what I do, right? Because I'm still doing it now. I'm 43, I've just come back from overseas and trying to sort of figure out how I can have an impact or contribute to the ESG conversation in Australia, is to find out who are the influencers in there and reach out to them. Because largely they'll say yes. They will make some time. Don't give them a timeline. Like I say, have you got any time in the next 6 months for us to have an hour's cuppa or a yarn online? And largely people will do it very, very graciously and generously, and they will often connect you in. So it's, once you've figured out what you're passionate about, where there's a need and what skills you've got, if you can find that, that'll help you find your sweet spot as to where you can actually make a difference, something that you're going to care about, which will bring you joy. And there's another one usually in a 3-pronged approach, but I can't think of it.
Quick, Fleur, throw one in.
Yeah, I think that, it was interesting you're talking about wanting to get started. My gut tells me that most people that are having that consideration going, right, I want to take a more active role in X, or I feel like I've got time, or part of my life stage and age is opening me up for this opportunity, is that they've probably been doing some form of leadership all along in some way. So what is it that, like Matt said, about the skills and what you can contribute? I know that I'm an advocate by nature. I like to advocate on behalf of others. So that gives me, that board and advocacy sort of stuff that I have been doing in the past is a great fit, and that's what I can kind of bring to the table. And I guess I'm starting to think about what that might look like, going forward. So you're constantly I think people get really nervous and go, I've never done anything like this before and I'm starting out and I'm fresh. You're not fresh. You're fresh, but you're not a noob. Everybody's been doing something at some point. And every single one of us, even if we have been in leadership positions since young, and that was just a happy accident for me. You're still going through phases and reinventions and changes. So don't be afraid to talk to somebody that is an establisher, because they're probably going through a similar, pivot or challenge right at the moment as well. And sometimes if you can't, I think it's good I just remember the moment where someone gave me an opportunity, and it's recently, where I looked at that and thought, oh my gosh, that person sees something in me that I don't see in myself. And it was a really humbling kind of feeling, and a really lovely feeling. I was like, oh wow, this person sees that in me and I don't see that in myself. So I really like to be able to try and give that feeling to people, to point out and go, you've got some great skills in this area, and help people distill it, because you're never quite looking at yourself from the right perspective about what you can bring to the table.
There's a couple of things, Jo, sorry, Jules.
No, go, Matt.
Just a couple of things. Then, Fleur, you piqued my want to say something. God, English is really amazing for me at the moment. One is, don't think that your contribution has to be loud and out the front and all the rest of it. You know, if you're passionate about something, everybody's contribution can look different but be equally as valuable. I can't remember what the other one was that I was going to say.
Well, I think that's when we quite often get dominated by the extroverts who are quite happy to go and then be noisy about the things. And you're right that it looks very different for a lot of people as well.
I talk in my team about leadership without rank. Everybody has
100%. 100%.
So lead your work, lead your contribution, and lead your, you know, what you're doing within the team. And I can tell you now, like, I am those people that you know who's making a contribution and where it is and what you value in people, and it's not about where they are in the tree.
There's some lovely comments and experience that's being popped in the chat. So thanks for people who are doing that. We've got about 10 minutes until we're going to wrap up. I guess I wanted to make sure, Fleur and Maz, if there's anything else you want to share with this group, any other ponderings or bits and pieces that you've got a chance to. But then I also want to make sure that if something's come up for anybody, you've got a question or you've got a thought that you really want to share with the group, that you've got the opportunity to do so. So let's go Maz and Fleur for some final comments, and ladies online, which we are all at the moment. If anybody's got a thought or a comment they want to share, please feel free to.
I think the only thing that I mean, there's so much that you can share, and I'd be super happy to have a yarn with anybody on the call, but is to let go of comparison. We often compare ourselves to other people, and we're not as successful, not as smart, not as skinny, not as fat, not as fit, not as fast, not as well connected. You know, and that actually takes away our joy of just being, and also the value that we place on the contribution that we can make as individuals. I think, you know, every single person has a role to play that is valued. And although sometimes people won't see that, that's where what Fleur said earlier really comes into the fore, is point out when people make a difference in your life. I'm perpetually telling people they look lovely or something down the street just to give people a smile, which then gives me a smile. So, selfish. But I just, you know, I think comparing yourself to other people is the biggest stealer of joy and also of confidence. So I'll just leave you with that.
Yeah. I think, you know, in a similar vein, don't come into this with a scarcity mentality. There are heaps of opportunities out there for everyone, and the rising tide lifts all ships. So help, you know, don't be thinking that we're not competing with each other. And I think sometimes we do feel like, you know, sometimes you're trying to put yourself, and the worst thing I see is people trying to put themselves forward for things and feeling the only way to do that is to show how much better they are than the other people. And just do you. There's plenty of room for everyone. Don't worry. There's lots of room at the top, lots of room for rural and regional women. Like Joe's comment in the chat about having a sponsor and someone to get you through that door, I completely agree. And just make sure for every time that's happened to you, you're doing it for somebody else.
Yeah, I agree. I second all of that. Does anyone like to ask any questions at all? You can turn your mic on.
While no one's saying anything, just enjoy life and have more fun. I think we so often take ourselves so seriously, and there's no joy in that. And ultimately we're dead, and 2 generations on, no one's ever going to know you were here. So you may as well enjoy it. You know, the graveyards are full of tombstones that nobody even remembers a story. So have fun and enjoy life. And yes, work hard when you need to, but don't be feeling that that's a box you have to fall into and fit all the time, because take it from somebody who's burnt out about 8 times in her life. There's a lot more to life than work.
Catherine, that brings me joy hearing you say that. Good.
Burnout thing too, it was really, and so if I'm stealing oxygen or someone else that's wanting to ask a question, just jump in and cut me off. But I'm just filling time while people are thinking of their questions. But I remember like early, and I'm not like, you know, I'm still mid kind of career, right? But like earlier in my career, felt I confused, I guess, my wanting to do something with just being flattered. Someone asked me to do something and I was flattered that I was asked, and so I said yes. And it wasn't something that I was really passionate about, so I probably wasn't putting my best energy and foot forward into it, and I was locking myself out from other things, and I felt like I had to say yes to everything to build. I was flattered that they asked, so I was saying yes just based on that, based on actually my values, my goals, my interest areas. So try and call out the flattery when you see it to yourself, when you think about saying yes or no to something. And similar to Maz's thing about having fun, you got heaps of time. Don't stress. Like, there's opportunities to do come around, and don't stress. If now's not the right time, it's not the right time. Like, it's all good.
Yeah.
I had
Good at
something to
saying
say,
that,
if that was okay.
Yeah, Lisa.
I grew up, we used to connect, my girlfriends and I used to connect with the CB radio. We'd all pick a channel, we'd all jump on, and we'd sort of flood the airwaves. And that was our sort of, link in sort of stuff. And I found post-COVID, it's brought back that wonderful hybrid opportunity that today we can actually do this online. And it really refreshes me and brings me back to when I used to go and sit in someone's ute, whether it's my own or someone else's, and we'd tune into the channel and we'd just literally, how are you going? And that's what I love about this. It's that again, it's that connectivity through whatever medium you've got at the moment. So that's kind of the back to the fun bit, Maz. It's kind of reminding me of that, just tuning in and turning up.
Reminds me of the WhatsApp groups. If you don't have a WhatsApp group with a few friends on it that you can jump in and chime in and ask questions or have confessions or whatever, get amongst it. Maybe we should all have a WhatsApp group. But I just love I've got a couple of friendship groups, and I'll, for different purposes at different stages of my areas of my life, but I just find them such comfort, and I imagine it's kind of the similar thing. Just get on and connect with people.
We used to send faxes to each other in the
too.
school holidays.
Faxophones. I was talking to a friend, we're in one group, and we're starting a thing called Waffle Wednesday. And every Wednesday we just waffle, like a little video about what's happening in our lives and just share what's going on and what our thoughts are for the week. And you just drop it there. And I get excited about Wednesdays to see, rather than just like the little chats, and keep that connection.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. We used to have a group that was hump day selfies, and on a Wednesday you'd just take a selfie of wherever you were.
Yeah, that's good.
So good. Okay, I am conscious of the time. I'm going to wrap this up. I literally thank you so much to both of you for your time, and thank you all of you who have dialed in live for your time and for joining us for something that was super random that probably popped up in your LinkedIn feed, and you're like, oh yeah, that looks all right. I'll register for that. I think that is something that's really exciting, to be able to do things that are new like this as well. Really, really keen to have people that are interested in sort of continuing it on and being involved and rubbing shoulders with other interesting people to have a look. I put a link in the chat there to go and have a bit more of a look about what we're doing as far as the connection table itself. I feel like we should probably put you two on as retainers. That was some pretty good pimping there without being asked throughout that conversation. But again, this is the joys of having people that were invoices in the mail. So I would really like to thank you all for dialing in. Jules, can you think off the top of your head who we're talking to next month?
Just literally popping it in the chat now. So Ollie Lalive is joining us in December to talk about some of the work that he's doing around this positive way of telling stories. And then in the new year, we've got Lycia Heath, who some people on this call might know, but she's the CEO of Women for Election. And so that's certainly looking at, how do we get more female voices at government, at local, state and federal. We've also got Dan Gavel. So this isn't necessarily just about rural and regional people talking to themselves. Again, we need to get out of that echo chamber of us all talking to each other. And so we've got some opportunities for some metropolitan-based people who are looking at, activities around investment, looking at board recruitment. So there's a whole range of people. So we'll be putting them out each month, but certainly the next few will be Ollie, Lycia and Dan, and we'll certainly be sharing that through the LinkedIn.
And then if you do want to join the connection table, we're doing even more extra stuff in there, and that concept of exposing to or continuing like professional development training and opportunities and things. There is literally, we're putting more and more board positions, advisory panel positions, shout outs to all sorts of opportunities and things that are going into the feed in our platform every other day. But yeah, we've got some, can you actually pull up and see what I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this. I should actually know what's on the calendar for the things, but all sorts of workshops around, from like how to write a decent keynote to cross-cultural leadership to managing committees and things when you're doing it remotely like this. What else have we got, Jules?
There's all sorts of goodness in
There's
there.
all sorts
Anyway, there's all sorts of goodness in there. But I reckon we're at time, so I think we need to bounce. Thanks everybody for being part of today. This is the first of many conversations. Hopefully it's triggered some energy for you and a chance to kind of reflect on all of what you're doing in your part of rural, regional and remote Australia. Thanks, as Jo said, thanks to Fleur and Maz. I'm going to stop recording and we'll see you all at another event.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank
Thank you very much. See you.
Bye.